guess the one topic I have is that I streamed it at 11:30 instead of 11. I also have been thinking about moving Wednesday night dojo to Wednesday day dojo, and been considering trying to stream for 5 days a week. I don't know if this is wise. I don't need you to even deal with it. I just appreciate being patrons. So I'm gonna figure something out. But I go through an identity crisis where I don't know what I should be doing or how often or what I should be doing and things like that. And except for this, lately I feel that uh, um, in order to justify what I just did with my book, I'm racing against this desire to not feel foolish for putting so much time into a book that what I mean is that I feel satisfied, but unless I can like make my writing like sort of justify all the time it takes, I kind of feel foolish. That's all. It's more foolish just from an artist perspective, not really from a writer's perspective. It's just physically hard and takes a lot of calories. I love every bit of it, but I feel foolish when I put so much time into something that doesn't really pay off. Now, I think it does pay off. I just think it takes a while. The first Black Eye Club I wrote, I think in the year and a half it was there, I probably made like 2000 or something off of it. So if you were to add, I think if we guessed that I put 2 months into it, then I only had to survive off other means for a month and a half for me to write that is how I look at it. If this sounds so boring, forgive me. I'm just kind of telling you how I think. As an artist, I've always thought this way that, hey, James, I think that you could call I've literally told myself when I was in my 20s, you could call yourself an artist as long as you can pay your bills. If you can pay your bills, James, you get to be that. You can be whatever the fuck you want to be. If it's going to be a cartoonist, James, you got to pay your bills because what's not going to happen is you are not going to be able to go into your parents' house and tell them that you're a cartoonist and then try and bum money from them. It's just not going to fucking work. I know these people, they raised me. I'm not gonna do it. It's just not gonna happen. So I fucking love that, honestly. It's very important to me, especially as an artist. I don't think that this is how anyone else should be an artist. Please hear this. I'm just telling you about my personal journey, and more has to do with validity, with uh, I can find joy doing something, but if I imaginate in front of other people and they hurt my ability to see myself as, say, a writer, then I'm not having as much fun. I don't want to be a closet writer. I want to be a writer in public, right? I think this idea is kind of at the heart of this whole pride gender thing, by the way. It's the same thing of I want to be able to imaginate myself in public without all your fucking rules. I'm just saying, in my mind, it's kind of like that all of us are emerging as artists. And it's easier for certain kinds of art to be like, well, I'm this or I'm that, and other kinds are not. And we're just watching the unfurling of that. You could be a painter in public. That's totally legit. You can have overalls with a bunch of different colors on there and and you got a whole thing going there and people are like, oh, you must be a painter, and you're like, how'd you know? And it's like, well, because you're wearing painter overalls, and you're like, oh, well, I didn't notice. It's cute, it's adorable, it's adorable. I have a materialistic concept where I just have to pay my bills and stuff, so I've always applied my art to what I can afford to do. I'm the guy that built seven dragons out of bamboo. It was a very expensive endeavor. It did not, somehow I was able to pay, but I was living in a very squalor kind of existence. So I was the artist, but I was an artist that was like making $8,000 a year. And it takes a toll as you get older. Not that I'm getting older, but as you get older, your body needs more things like that. You need, shelter. And then, if you meet a bunch of fucking weirdos, after a while, the weirdos, they kind of lose their sheen. You're just sort of like, I want less weirdos. There's only so much a tapestry that I hang up on this wall is going to do to block out the rest of the weirdos in this house, right? So then you want your own house because you know that if you can have your own space, you can build this magic circle and you can leave shit there. Like you can put something in a circle and come back and it's still there. You're like, oh my God. And then you start to build a business or, whatever else it is. I've tried this through graphic design. Did pretty well. Went into computer programming, did pretty well. And then honestly, I think my downfall was my lack of social uh importance. I've always felt that my clients were important as people, but I've always really not been able to show up for them in the social ways that they would expect someone else. I always thought that it was all going to be based on the quality of my work. I honestly really thought that. I really thought that as long as I just rock solid deliver quality work, that's the only thing that mattered. And that works for about 20 years. Like it does work. But I think I had a sheen of everything else that made everything else okay. And really at the heart of it was this lack of that ability to pay attention to the nuance of the team, of the energy that's there, of who wants even credit. I'm not that I have a problem with that, but just, being more nuanced to that, being more nuanced to liking an idea, even though it's a bad idea, stuff like that. Uh, I think that's really been a blessing that's made me get into writing, i.e., now live streaming, which comes down to I don't really know what I should be doing as far as frequency goes. I feel that when I switch from, since there's no hands up, I'm just gonna keep it going. So, since when I switched from, I don't even feel like I'm babbling. I'm just telling you, I'm really talking a lot. Sorry. When I switch to non-daily, I start to try and perfect a show that when I bring to you, it's more polished from start to finish. That's the only reason why I would want to take a break. I don't actually take less time. When I go daily, I have a lot less time and I get much more aggressively stressed out about wanting to deliver a show, and it squeezes more faster out of the tube, but it takes a lot longer to build up a momentum, sort of like a calligraphy where I kind of have to get into the husking of the corn. The first three are going to take you a while. So my hope has always been that if I go into daily, I just get better at live streaming, at figuring out what it is I do. But then I'm always struggling with this is an idea called talking to reptiles. It's really more important than a live stream. I want this to serve as a representation of me for the rest of my life. How do I do that and bury it in a live stream? Because when I ask the AI or when I look around and see what everyone else is doing, people tell me, well, the secret to being having exposure in social media is to post over and over and over again. And this really hurt me because I really only have one idea and it's really important. This one idea is really important. And I don't, if I post 1,000 times, then all 999 ideas are distractions from the fact that I started all this I just want you to look at this talking to reptiles. That's all. That's all. In my head, I'm like, well, it's because it's not good content. But also in my head, it's like, actually, it is good content, but you're not serving it correctly. You're not presenting it to the place correctly. And it's been honestly the biggest distraction, I'll call it, to my work. I think me thinking of it as a distraction has been my biggest flaw. I think it needs to be part of my calligraphy and my art. And so you're watching me experiment kind of with how to do that. Where's the next place to go? And the entire time, fuck, I didn't even mention I don't think I mentioned my book today. I forgot. So I forgot to do that. It's okay. But it's like the whole purpose of me doing the show was that I was supposed to be raising the book up, saying, "Hey, buy my book." Like that's the purpose, and I forget all the time. I get into it, and this is what it's like to be a live streamer. None of you asked, but now there's hands up, so I can forgive you all. Yesenia, I can hear you, but I'm going to turn the camera off just because as I'm hearing you, I'm going to pour a cup of coffee. Is that okay? Can you hold the floor that long? All right, great. Go ahead.
Hey y'all, it's nice to see you. I resonate with almost everything that James said. I recently, like 4 days ago, I promised myself I was gonna get the premium for ChatGPT so I can use it as an editor for my book. And I've given myself a deadline that by September 1st, I have to have my book written. and done, and all I have to do after that is polish it. But I haven't even fucking started. Like I just hung out with my friends like a couple of days ago, like in a row, and they're new friends because they're like, when you get a new job and you make new friends and they invite you to stuff and you just you feel like you're entering into a new portal, like a new world, and that's been interesting and magical. Um, just work I love my job. My job is interesting because was born and raised in South Florida. So, and I've been a pothead since like, early adolescence. So buying weed in a car and then moving to like Colorado and now I work professionally in like cannabis retail. It's like an interesting dynamic. So I feel like again, like I just live a whole different life than the one that I pictured like 10 years ago. Like I totally 10 years ago, I pictured myself either like in med school or like a culinary artist school, and to see myself in like just an apartment and just working day by day and just trying to that's what I keep working so hard to like make a certain salary so that I can tell myself, all right, now I have enough money to invest in publishing books because my ultimate goal is to at least have like 4 books published before, you know, I pass. So thank you for letting me share.
I love that goal. I think it should be more, but four's not bad. I'll let you do that. I I think this is the key, and I don't want to insert the importance that you make money from this any more than it needs to be for other people. I There are certain things in 3D printing, and there's just different things that I do that I shouldn't do, but I just find the technology so interesting that I kind of go overboard. Robotics, I've wasted so much money on circuits, and it's crazy. If I show you downstairs, you'd be like, "Oh my God, you're a fucking addict." And I am. I fucking love that, just the whole genre. And it's never made me money. It never will. I even had a client once that wanted me to help him develop a whistle that a child held in their mouth, and if they turned their head down, it would flash an alarm to make them keep their head up while they dribbled the basketball. And we got into a fight about a lipo battery. I was just like, oh my God, I'm an electrical engineer. I built this device. Here's the circuit. Here's a blueprint. Here's the mock-ups for it, all this other stuff. And then I said, but we can't use lipo. And he's like, why not? I was like, because I don't want a fucking lipo battery blowing up in kid's face. And he was like, why not? And I was like, what? Why? I mean, that was exact words, but it's like, I was like, I can't do this industry. He wants it to be rechargeable. I'm like, well, no. The answer is no. No, you just take a watch battery. I made this thing low circuit. A big watch battery in this thing is going to be perfect. And you could slip it off. You could make it disposable. You make even more money. No, James, it has to be rechargeable. It has to be rechargeable because that most makes things modern. This is the exact same thing where what you think is art, what you know is good, what you know for a fucking fact is the better solution doesn't fucking matter because you're dealing with someone else's dogma. And this is terrifying if you want to be a writer. This is terrifying if you want to do something that has your soul attached to the front of it, because at the front of it ultimately comes down with someone who has less limbic spectrum taste than you do. That's all. It's not an insult. But if you've been writing your craft for years, you're going to have a better sense of what you think actually flavors are than someone else. I'm not saying you're right, they're right, but you have so much more sophistication to it that it ends up uh, creating a bubble, a pocket, right, where others don't even get to see you. And it's the Dr. Seuss's that are the ones that make it. It's the ones that are able to uh, psychotically look outside of their own personal reality and just honestly to disassociate to find what is it that everyone else wants. And it's a gift because I think ultimately when we learn how to serve people, we learn to understand ourselves. We learn how to cater to people. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. Like that's a beautiful skill when it comes to pollination. So the artistic journey, if I could just wrap this up because we got hands up, but in my mind, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying the artistic journey has to involve you making money for what you do. I'm more just talking about me and what I've had to do in my own life just to feel justified. I feel justified where I shouldn't. I shouldn't need that. I'm proud as fuck of the book I just wrote. Yesenia, it doesn't fucking matter if no one else reads it, but it does. It does because I'm a symbiotic, non-psychopathic, associated social creature, and I think that's what makes me a good artist. You know. Oh, I forgot. There's no mod. True. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Um, James, I what I really appreciate about Dojo is the opportunity to put a practical application for talking with reptiles. So I'm just going to throw myself on the mat here. I've been pondering this. Um, I think, geez, it's been over a month. You'd say, well, I'd like to know what somebody's prejudices are. You know, the bias thing. And I think I had left or made a comment a while back, like I was mayor of Hyena Town a long time ago. And I never really did explain that. It's like, I look in the mirror and it's like, okay, everybody's got an asshole. I'm the only asshole I can do anything about. So what can I do about this? So I'm mayor of Hyena Town, you know? Um, so what I drive in certain sections of town and certain neighborhoods that I've been to before, I had this, and I was very mindful about this. There's one particular, it's basically Section 8 housing, and I'm going, it was like I could see the engrams come into place. It was like typesetting. The word that came through the mind that occurred was typesetting. I already have a preconceived idea about this neighborhood. And I'm going, and where did that come from? And I think it really does come from the soil because I pull into a particular apartment complex or something, and there's trash all over the place. And I get a vibe. Um, Not for anybody there, but when somebody gets in the car, I have some of the best conversations. I don't even look at people when they get in the back of my car. I just kind of sit there for a minute and I go, okay, these are where I have some of the best conversations. Sometimes I don't. But there's this
Hey, True. I I really want to hear this, and it's
people looking at me. I mean, I'm very careful about not looking in the rear view. Let me try something here. I'm sorry. I think I know what it is.
so True. We've been
Okay,
through
is that
this.
any better?
We've been through this before. It could be your Bluetooth, but it also I think it's because you're doing it over mobile, which is fine. But it could be that if you turn video off, I'm not sure, but I don't think anyone's really
Oh,
able to hear you. You can try again, but another thing you could do before Dojo, I realize this is a little bit of work, but if you got used to it, I think you could download an app like a speed testing app, and you could just run that where you're parked before Dojo, and it would just give you an idea of what your upload speed is. And that's just another suggestion. I'm not saying you have to do that. Please forgive me. I just want to help because I really like what you contribute, but I'm having trouble hearing you. You're muted. You're still muted. I'm not sure. I think you're saying go on.
I said, yeah, let's just go ahead and move on because I don't want to repeat myself and slow things down.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
fascinating. It's an ongoing discovery, so I could probably circle back around to this anytime.
Well, and see that part came
I'm
in
good.
clear, just so you know. Yeah, I and I'm only stopping you because I want to hear you. So that's kind of weird way to do it, but yeah. Uh,
Oh, okay. So I don't know what the last thing you heard was.
well, no, I'm just saying. Look,
Okay,
it's
are
cutting
we?
in and
Is
out.
this
I don't want
better?
to play this any. Yeah, I don't want to play this anymore. But yeah, we tried looking to speed test.
Okay.
Yeah, stuff like that. Diraj, go ahead. You there? Your hands up. Thanks,
Okay.
True. Appreciate it.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do I sound all right?
Yes,
I'll
you
turn my
do.
camera.
You look okay. There you go.
Oh,
Right on.
oh,
Hey,
maybe not. Anyway, thanks for having me. Thanks for opening up this, you know, think tank too. And I'm sort of taking notes. You said to dissociate to view the larger orbit, and I love that sort of concept of disillusionment, especially, uh, you have in any sort of psychedelic trip, whether it be with a substance or with hypertropic breath work and the disassociation that comes with sort of the DMT experience, which is inherent to breath work, sort of Kundalini things, yoga. Uh, that's sort of the grid, right? So if you are approaching that experience with the grid or setting yourself on the quest, you're sort of taking yourself and you're trying to view the higher orbit of astrology, essentially. Like, how are the archetypes spinning around you at different factors of mental, spiritual, physical? Um, yeah, I sort of think that comes into what True was saying with talking to reptiles and sort of my experience with how that consciousness comes in and starts to tell you things, right? And that's sort of, get into schizophrenia, right? Or I think literally talking to dragons, you know, sort of titans, Nephilim, like these concepts are sort of intertwined at like the interdimensional viewing, right? Or communication with thought form, egregore, clowns, and ties into like the clown chakra. Okay. I hope this is tracking. Um, but yeah, you also expressed that as an artist, that's your expression. You were talking about how you express and your arcing form through different energy centers, right? You're speaking, as I am experiencing your art through YouTube. I haven't read any of your books directly, so I love that idea and to teach that aspects are dynamic. Like, you don't need to paint, right? You don't need to write, you don't need to do anything. It's expression. Creative energy is fundamental to all expression of energy center, right? Or uh, you know the arc of divine feminine, divine masculine, the angle and the compass too, I think, ties into that concept of holding that. The Yeah, also the sort of Ouroboros or the caduceus, right? You have the two snakes going up the center pillar, which perceivably could be your spine, and the hemispherical tension of all the spiraling energies in which you feel things. Uh, yeah, and then you can perceive that there's synesthetic qualities to all of that, right? And you see like people hear color, right? Or feel vibrations at those different energy centers, which can combine and amplify each other. All right, I don't want to preach, so I'm going to pass it on if anyone wants to say anything. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I don't want to change the any interpretation either, but because True brought up talking to reptiles and you did too, I at least want to just tell people really super quick uh, the idea of dimensions inside of your body is pretty sound. And you could start with your id, your brainstem. Atlas itself, the thing that's holding up the world, is its own entity. It has its own neurons. It has its own neural patterns. It also is able to lie to itself. So the neuromelanin is in this structure, and that this structure is your. You could say this is the reptilian. This is a reptilian that's actually living in a different dimension, and that dimension is actually now. Your spine is closer to now than your neocortex. Your thinking process is as much as 500 milliseconds behind what your spine's truly seeing. which means you're in tandem to a living reptile, an entity that lives in the pure now and has nothing but reflexology. Is the reflexes that you have, most of them don't even go into the brain. Why? Because they don't need a brain. They don't need a brain for that. This is a living entity. It doesn't need a brain. This is a later thought that we were convinced that the brains were necessary for consciousness, and it's wrong. It's always been wrong. There's nothing right about that at all. Guys, I promise you, there's nothing about the brain that's more conscious than anything else. Neurons are conscious. Collective cellular exchanges that have memories are conscious because Thothian consciousness is a thing. What does that mean? I'm telling you that there's one of many ways of looking at consciousness would be Thothian, and I'm calling that memory consciousness, the ability to remember what just happened to you. And that you are built on a three-tiered time machine of Thothian consciousness. The center, your inner spine, is the now. It's locked into the now. It doesn't have the luxury of dread. It doesn't have the luxury of futurescape. It doesn't think about the future. It doesn't think about the past. It has no attachment to such things. It is firmly in the crucible of God. It's burning in the flames of, oh my fucking God, this hurts. It does, because there's nothing the reptile can do to subdue how much it hurts the signal, because it has no memory that this is going to hurt. And the memory that something is going to hurt is what makes pain. Hurts don't make pain. The memory of hurts creates the universe of pain. That universe has a spirit animal living inside of it. That spirit animal remembers every bad thing that the reptile and it endured together. Fire bad. Fall off cliff bad. Eat frog with red dot bad. Eat poison, white poison ivy on buttocks bad. That these things were crucial for us to learn, so much that we started saving calories to build a hindbrain, to build something that lived in the past, that all it did was memorize what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? And to be able to constantly store out of all the what the fuck was that, how much what the fuck was that is this experience that I just have. I swear to you, this isn't a joke, that this is just literally your biopic history of everything that's ever happened to you. And at the top of that is Saber, what the fuck was that tiger? That's at the top of what the fuck was that, right? And at the bottom of what the fuck is that is a acorn falls from a tree. And that you're able to, you fucking took the experiences between those two things and built a universe out of it. And you hallucinate. All of the visions that you have are built off the hallucination of this hindbrain. And it's not even that simple, because some of us became aware of our hindbrain. We grew sapience of our hindbrain, and we grew a neocortex. Every vertebrae has one, by the way. Every vertebrate, has something that is living in both the past and the future, but just in a very tiny light cone. A light cone meaning the perspective dominance from now. A salamander would have a light cone that's this big. A human would have a light cone that's this big. An Aztec would have a light cone that's like this big, that it expands as we become more complex. Our memory past engine and our future engine are able to broadcast, to cast their nets further into the past and the future. In other words, I can remember deeper the epigenetic pain of my ancestors. And meanwhile, your great grandfather was like, what are you talking about? I didn't diddle you. I don't even know what that means. And you're looking at the difference between these generations, right? Where they're able to epigenetically remember shit that others could not before them, which is why we're always ashamed of our parents if we're doing well. If the ripple's truly doing its job, we should be ashamed of how cannibalistic, barbarian, psychopathic, evil our parents were, our grandparents were, because we're gaining in this complexity. All of it's expanding around us, right? So these are three totally different ideas, totally different experiences. The reptile, the id, the epimetheus, the hindbrain, the one who names the animals, is called Epimetheus. He's the one that lives in the past. And the Prometheus, the one that carries the light into the future and says, I'm gonna get a mortgage. I'm gonna send my kids to college. This other being, sort of like the hindbrain, but now it's living off lies. Entire existence is based off, I'm going to, hey, here, hold my beer. The entire thing is watch this, watch this, watch this. I think this will work. These are three completely different people. This is a trinity. And if you could tap into the fact that each of these are neurologically insulated from each other, you could tap into that and understand that not only are those three individuals insulated from each other, that the entire thing is split bicamerally into a left house and a right house. You are a schizophrenic nutcase living in the future, in the past, and the now simultaneously. And the only thing keeping you alive is the fantasy that you have that the universe is going to be the same as it is tomorrow. It's the only thing. So this is a tweaked out way of being crucified on a rib cage of bone, right? And fluxed into this realm of time, not of place, but of time, that you're crucified in time into this thing. So when you're talking to the reptile, you are aware of the compassion that it would take to speak to the reptile inside you that only knows now, that only knows reflexes, and to not anthropomorphize it and give it extra special things. The same way we say, well, demons can lie and they can have a credit score and they're more powerful than everyone and they control all the corporate. It's we want to give that power to anyone, including the Zeta Reticuli, when we really need to be more responsible and compassionate what's really under the hood, you know. Annie, go ahead. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you. Ay. Reptiles. On Monday, right before dojo, I was literally talking to reptiles in my yard because I live in the desert and there's been an influx of reptiles. There was a snake, and I get to see how I react, and I get to slow down for just a half a second before I react. There was also a scorpion in the house. So I had the scorpion and snake, which to me are both like a red flag, like whatever else is happening in my life. It's watch out for snake, watch out for things that are could be dangerous. And it was not a rattlesnake. And that was a good thing. And but also anyway, just swinging back to the idea of being an artist. Am I being heard okay? Because I get.
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, great, thanks. When I was growing up as an artist and in the school system, I was taught a couple of things, or at least I understood. One thing was that if I was going to be an artist and go for a degree in art, that I was not to expect that was going to be my way to get a job in that there wasn't a job at the end of that avenue, so that it was a separate thing for me. But my parents wanted all of us to have degrees, and we had to have our college degrees. I said, okay, then it's going to be art. Sorry, and I'm going to have fun. And I know that it's not a ticket to a job. And I was able to maybe do something later with it. But the point is that plus the other thing that I deeply understand is that if you go into your art expecting it to bring you money, then it's not going to go very well. It just doesn't seem like when it's not the goal, but I guess the goal or the end product is earning a living or somehow bringing an income. That for me anyway, I don't know, maybe it's just for me, but I could never. I'm just a horrible manager with money in general, and I'm just lucky that things go the way they go, and I don't know. I just try not to even think about any of that stuff, and I try to become a businesswoman and advocate for my art and so forth and so on. But that's just that I'm way over here on the side of just making the stuff, and maybe that's an excuse, but it feels right on that level. And anyway, meanwhile, back to the reptiles. They're actually these giant lit they're called chuckwallas, but they're iguanas that are crawling around, and they're pretty tame. And I actually they jump on my hand, and I feed them by hand, and I look at them and I stare into their eyes, and they seem to stare back, and I can tell by, they're looking around to see if there's any predators up above. And the iguanas also have that little dot on the top of their head, which is basically it's like a light sensor in case there's a shadow of a hawk that goes over. It's just like a on off kind of a thing. And I believe that's a similar, we probably have some of those too, those little sensors that are just light sensors that are not, if there is anything, it's going to be a blurry thing. They're not going to actually see with it, but it's called a third eye on the top of their head. And you can actually see it on iguanas. There's a little dot there. Not on the wild ones here. I haven't noticed it, but I've seen it on people's pet iguanas, the kind that, because my ex used to have an iguana, and it was a different kind with the comb and everything. It's different than the ones here. The ones here, the chuckwallas, are like desert iguanas. They're not technically, they're in the iguana family, but they're unique, and they're different colors, and they're amazing, and they're just magnificent and crazy and wacky, and they have little personalities and little dramas that are playing out all around me. And it's literally just reptiles and lizards. There's whiptail lizards, there's rattlesnakes, there's every kind of reptile you could imagine, pretty much. Not very many tortoises, or yeah, not as many desert tortoises as I would like, but doing the art and putting your heart and soul into it, to me, I mean, I've sold paintings before by having somebody put it on the wall at a cafe, and they said, how much do you want for it? How about $50? And it was like, wow, I sold a painting for 50. It was like, wow, because, I was in college, and it was like amazing. And, that seemed to make sense on just a one-time thing but mostly I just want to give people my stuff. I don't want to sell it. I just want to give to you. I want to make you a painting. Like, what do you want? What do you want a picture of? And that's what I want to do. And that's what I do. So, otherwise I'm out there, cleaning toilets or picking up trash in the park, for money, or at least that's what I did, like a big part of my life, until I worked at the print shop. And then it was typesetting and doing graphics until the desktop publishing took over, and there was no more printing presses, and there were no more putting ink on the machine and the mechanics of the gears and the beautiful machines that used to actually print things one by one on a sheet of paper. That's about it.
Well, I think that's a more honorable way of doing art. And I think that my mental sanity is wrapped into why I want to, I want my organism to thrive from the very cosmology that I express through my art. Because otherwise, people would just call me crazy, and there would just be too many. And I just wouldn't make it. That's all. I've been in those situations. And so in my mind, the art has just been the perfect furniture I have to touch my psychology and to do things with my psychology, to exercise my self-worth through the idea that, well, even though people are saying this is a stupid idea or it doesn't make much sense or whatever, if it's putting a shelter over my house, then it literally does make sense. It literally does have justification, and it gives my personal sense of self I will say it, a false sense of security, but a sense of security that gives me so many more calories than I used to have without it. Because when I'm living in a mode where I'm working and then I'm stopping and then I'm going to do my art, I don't do art because I don't think that creating makes sense, because I'm not out of the Maslow's pyramid yet. That I'm in a state of, this is just how I see it. I hope I don't sound argumentative. I until I emerge out of this pyramid of food, clothing, shelter, I really don't think that I'm even capable of producing art. And so, from my personal standpoint, it's been such a vital sense of, if I can make art be the thing that gets me out of this pyramid, then that art is exactly what I should be pursuing. But if it does not, then I don't know if that's really what I should be doing with my life. I want my life to be out of that pyramid where most other people are, where I'm waiting until 4 o'clock happens, because at 4 o'clock, this imaginary door opens and I get to leave. And then I get to do something, and that time is there. But then there's this other time where I come back into this imaginary place and sit there again. That eats more of my calories than I could ever have to even have art. In other words, that feeling of being in that thing for a while, from 9 to 5 or whatever it is, that eats so many calories that I don't even want to make art. I just want to try and find a survival through that point. And to me, this is a psychological conscious thing that's happening across the board with all of us. The generational changes. When you're looking at the TikTok videos that are like, this person's called this other person an N word, and we found out where they work, and we told their boss, and now they've been fired. Does anyone hear how fucking kindergarten that is? Like, first of all, that's fine. I don't have a beef with that. I don't believe I think free speech is bullshit. I think you should be responsible for your speech, right? But I just trying to say that in this case, it's showing so clear that none of us are adults, that none of us are really living in a way where we don't have someone that can be told on, where you can go tell on someone that will hurt you for that. In my mind, the art would be superficial unless it made my lifestyle bulletproof so that I could make more. Until it did that, I would not have any uh what's the word? I wouldn't have any justification to even be making art, because if it doesn't do this, it's not an art to me. It's not an expression of that, so to speak. And it's all psychological. It's all fucking psychological Freudian furniture based on probably how I was raised, just trying to survive in that way of like, how do I find, I just need someone to tell me I'm okay. Honestly, that's what created that out of me. And the only way that I could get that is, this has to actually pay my bills. I don't need to live rich. I don't have a family. I don't have nice cars, none of that stuff. I just want to be able to make more art. And I can only make that art if that pyramid is satisfied. If I have food, clothing, shelter, my confidence, my parasympathetic nature comes out, and then my compassion is able to come out, and only then can I produce. And I think I'm backwards. I think a lot of other people, they do it the opposite. They utilize art to get themselves into the parasympathetic state. And I think that's fascinating. And also, I'm like, I don't know how you can do a backflip. I think you're fucking insane. I think you're going to fucking break your neck. Why are you doing that? That's
Yeah.
not saying it's brave, right? But that's how I see it. So it's an open mic if anyone has anything on this. This is a great topic, Annie.
Yes. I can say just the concept of art, arc, arch, right? So bridging, it's sort of the creative trinity there, where you have the structure, you are embody, the protein shake, the protein shell, in which you are giving more dimensional reality to at factoring levels. And it sort of goes into the 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 star in my eye, right? The faith of a mustard seed, starting imprinting uh, that pulse that propagates further, you know,
Yeah.
the further creation, the greater project, right? And perceiving that uh, like any idea or beginning, right? That's sort of how it has to start. And that's the alpha omega impulse, where we're traveling between the two, constantly transitioning from different anchor points of attention or location, geography, whatever, thoughts. Um, yeah, and then that goes into like Noah builds the ark, where he keeps the animal totem, right, of all momentum lines or quality of characteristics of these different living creatures, right? And that's the physical density therein too, in which we're also trying to cohese to the gifts of that Mother Earth, right? Sort of that, how do we enjoy things at all, or that internal, external, feminine, masculine duality, which you contain both, right? And sort of the creation act would be there, that hermaphroditic quality of Hermes, back again, uh, red shift, blue shift, in which we embody the center point, right? The collapse of that function at many layers. Yeah, but the star card in tarot would be the divine hermaphrodite, which in the Rider Waite tarot, you have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I perceive that as sort of 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on the land. You are transitioning between stepping into the lake and getting out of the lake, pouring 1 cup of water into the lake, 1 cup of water onto the land. So back to the age of Aquarius, in which we now are stepping into, it's sort of that creational mechanism in which we are finally, it's back back to the Renaissance. So
Well, I think as we watch with social media keep making it more expensive for people to have to express their art, for it to be a social credit score means that your opinion and prejudice, or you just have to fucking pick one. And eventually we'll end up building a new society off this. And even the Twitter shaming, even though I'm going to tell your boss on you, is really good, because it's just showing you where people would want to move to next, which is the preservation of their cosmology. Because to me, art and cosmology are the same. This is why I'm telling you, I'm sorry that I've pushed you. Not that anyone feels, I'm just saying, I'm sorry that I've kept saying, this is what I think art is, and tying it to my sense of food, clothing, shelter, things like that. But it's just, to me, art is cosmology. So they have to be related. Otherwise, it feels like I'm pretending to pretend. And this is something that a lot of people, I think, do. They were going out tonight, and a lot of them, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them really do mean, yeah, let's go pretend to pretend that we're in free time right now. And we're actually not, because it's 7:30 and I got to be home. It's a different framework. It's very different than, I'm up in the morning and I'm creating this, and the sun's going to go down at some point, and that's really all that matters. This is a very different cosmology than, I have to have all this done by 9 or by 10 or by 4. I don't know how to create in that matrix, because all it does is make me angry, which is, I'm not saying that's healthy. I get upset because it could be the Taurus, but it takes me a while to get my momentum going. And so when it's going, don't you fucking fuck with me, is how I feel, where it's like, why are you ruining this flow state right now? It took me this long to build this up. And so I feel threatened by it, which means I have to be self employed, because I can command that imaginative state as long as it takes. That's all. It took me 2 decades to learn this. I wish I was better at it, because I think I would have been able to make art more, because I would have had the food, clothing thing solve more. But that's why I was balanced so much between like these dragons, where it was like, here's a 6 week project, James, and you're making $700 off of it. How are you really proud of yourself for this? Because I don't know if that's how I really feel. All I feel is that we don't have cell phone service anymore. Like, that's what it's, that kind of a thing. And if you have enough lack of self-worth, that lack of payment is enough, because someone still saw you, and that witness is worth gold to you. It's worth your mortgage. And it is. I think ultimately I have a very special gift that it's been given to me, that I've worked as hard as I can to justify that I deserve it. This is the closest I can say it. And that is the ability to be self-employed and do what I do, so that when I wake up in the morning, I'm just like, let's fucking go, because that's where I am. And when I've been in the workplace, people have been like, can you tone it down? And my answer has been like, no, I will go crazy if I tone it down. I will not be alive anymore. And so I need to go work for myself. And that's how I rose as a contractor. I had no other choice. It was the only way I could keep that survive. I'm way over my stuff. Pi, looking forward to hearing what you got to say. Thanks for being here. Go ahead.
Well, thanks for the conversation. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think you do it the way people have always done it with patrons, or if you're a musician, you hope to get signed, or it's always part of it. It's up to you as the artist to say what you want to say, even if it's secretly like Michelangelo, or you have to think in a different scale and history. Like 10 years, I'm going to create this painting and it's going to have secret Jewish symbols in it, or, like in the Sistine Chapel or something, and that's a joke that, you're not going to be around to see anybody appreciate. So that's kind of true art when you're projecting into the future, I think. And I don't know, I just see historically finances are always tied with art. And if just the ideas of scruples, if just the literal Roman meaning of scrupulous, meaning like a tiny rock in your shoe. If you're rich and, if you don't have a tiny rock in your shoe, you don't have a limitation, you're more of an appreciator. So there's, I'm that way to some degree. You're fine with appreciating art and watching it unfold. You don't need to be the artist, or you don't have that, you don't have a scruple, so to speak. But yeah, just that aesthetic and the limitation that you create may be successful or not successful, and if you're a painter, you're going to need a gallery. And just the way things are now, it's a little harder to make a mark, because even though it seems like there's all these outlets through social media, it's a little harder it's easier to have access, but it's harder to break through, I think, and through all the saturation. But one thing I kind of wanted to really talk about that doesn't really have kind of on a topic from last dojo that I wasn't here. I kind of had after that full moon, I hadn't even heard anything about it being a tiny moon. I found that interesting, because I was looking at the moon, and it looked like it had like a little part coming out as if there was something behind it, but then it was like switching and having an equal part on the other side. And I was like, wow, there must be something blurry in my eyes or something, and I was looking at that. And then a few days later, I had a weird episode where just that everything you were talking to seemed to come together as an explanation. But somebody had mentioned something. They had a friend, was that you, Annie, that saw it spinning? I thought, well, that almost looks like, if you had a flicker rate, like a strobe light, where it looks like something's standing still or moving. But it did seem like there was something weird about the moon. But the main thing is that I had a strange episode where it seemed like I was stuck in my peripheral vision, and my hemisphere, or my, it really, that's why, all your talk about the chicken hemispheric or the peripheral vision, and I couldn't stand. I've never had anything like this before. I couldn't stand. I had to crawl on all fours to my bed, and then I had these weird visions that seemed like stacked possibilities on top of each other, but just slightly separated. And so I just been thinking a lot about it. And you talk about epithemius, and that's like epi in Latin, like just separately. It's like I heard, but epithemy is I am them, and it's almost like with the separation of the hemispheres and the amygdala and the delay of the possible delay of like the rendering of reality, like all these visions took place here where I live. It didn't seem like in the future. It just seemed like around this time, and they just had different qualities, like a full range. Like one was like my gardens were just like extremely luxurious, just beyond measure. And then most of them were not very pleasant, but the whole experience was not very pleasant. I didn't really feel nauseous, but it really shook me to not be able to stand. It was like I had no center vision, and my peripheral vision just kept interphasing with each other, and just had these weird like dreams while I was laying there. And I was very, felt kind of weak. It really kind of scared me, but just in a detached way where I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. But usually you're talking about the feminine vision being a little different, and people always say I really felt this moon, and mostly women, and I never. I'm just like, yeah, it was cool, but I didn't feel anything. Or I didn't, nothing happened to me while I watched this eclipse or anything like that. But this time I was just tempted to think that there was something in the moon, but I felt like I had some kind of a weird thing like people talk about. That's just it was handy to have these explanations to apply to it. And so that's kind of what I did. But I just thought I'd mention that, because it just really seemed like something, and I'm still kind of thinking about it. But I just thought I'd mention that. Interesting conversations all around, though.
Thanks, Pi. It's great stuff. To add one little thing to this that some people might find interesting is that if you think about what the top dancer or a top athlete or a top artist, meaning you, really what makes you better, in other words, better than you were, if you don't want to be into competition, because that's fine, is your ability to listen to your reptile, is your ability to get closer to the now. And your ability to get closer to the now, not only does it make you catch the football faster than anyone else, or have a faster, quick response to reactions in the world, but it's giving you a huge boost of confidence over your ability to predict what's happening in the world, and that maybe that psychological advantage that we know is there when it comes to athletes and they go to special schools that in my mind just teach them how to find their inner reptile, because opening that gate, having the trust in your hindbrain, in my opinion, is how to get there, is understanding that your hindbrain only knows your past, which means if you over anthropomorphize your hindbrain, your spirit animal, and expect it to see the future, you're not going to believe in your spirit animal. But if you look at your spirit animal as the conglomerate of everything that's ever happened that's been bad to you, this would give you the good too, by the way. But it's just that matrix is really all it knows. So only listen to your spirit animal if you're referencing your past, and only listen to your Prometheus if you're referencing the future. And that maybe this is all an athlete's had to do, is just Had someone have a psychological conversation, I'm talking about dancers, I'm talking about painters, I'm talking about anyone that does anything with calligraphy, all they really have to do is understand and compassionate the Trinity. Understand and compassionate the lobal divine. One of your lobes is a divine all father. One of your lobes is a divine all mother. Just get over it. And if you can compassionate that one is supposed to be dominant and it's not a patriarchy in an evil way, it's kind of cool. And one is supposed to be submissive, but not in a negative way, in a receptive way, because the only way you could be a radio telescope is to fucking submit, to submit to the sound of every cosmic flow that comes at you from the universe. So the answer is not to be one or the other. The answer is to compassionate the lobes of all these different beings. They're fucking beings. Each of them are different beings that require different forms of compassion and food. And you logging yourself in between and understanding all of them puts you in the artist space where everything you do is calligraphy. Everything that comes out of you is just this beautiful art, right? This is probably all that charisma is that I see the art emanating from you because you're compassionating not just your reptile, but your spirit animal, your future self. Most of us just think our future self is us. It's probably where you are right now. You're living in the frontal lobe of your placebo of this is all that I am. And all these things are in the vehicle with you. And what makes us a better driver is just tapping into each of them in that way. Great stuff. I'm going to call Cameron. However, pretty sure this is Ashley.
Yeah, it's me. I was just gonna say, I heard you got the book. I hope you like it.
Okay, so thank you. It was
Yeah,
I'm someone I think you even told me, but anyway, yes, I'm looking forward.
yeah. And then the only other thing I was gonna say is I can sympathize a lot with it's very hard to marry what you really want to do as an artist and what people will pay for. So I feel that. So I will say, I don't see all of your work, but I really do. My favorite things that you've done have always been like your presentations. Like the one that I really like and remember well is when you did the one on like melanin in the eyes. It was a long time ago. Like I really like the way you set up that presentation and several of your other ones. So I don't know if that helps, but I always really enjoy that format
Thank
when you
you.
make those. I think
Yeah,
they have really good flow and so yeah, if
thank you.
that helps anything.
It does help. I not to dwell on this, but one of the things that really surprises me that Talking to Reptiles doesn't have anywhere even close to 10,000 views. Like it's like about a 4 month thought out
Mm,
presentation of like every single slide is like 2 hours of work and like and analyzing this stuff. It probably needs to be a book at some point. And I've got the video out there and it's just doesn't bite.
yeah.
It's just not. And if you read the comments, it's not like this sucks. It's a lot of people saying this is really interesting and it doesn't take. I what you said about what you think the world wants versus what the world will actually pay for is I am just all over this and understanding, trying to understand the difference between the two. And it's almost like we've wandered too far out of the reservation into defining who we are versus trying to stay into the matrix of what everyone else would be acceptable for who we are. And I think ultimately, hopefully, I'm going down on the ship of I'm ahead of my time. Even if I'm not, this is a good fantasy. Seriously, it's a good placebo that I'm telling myself that makes me feel better, that makes me sleep. And most importantly, when I get up in the morning, I'm just ready to rage. I'm ready to rage because I'm ahead of my time. That's all that matters. And this is the placebo, the cosmology that I would really need. And the AI told me this 2 months ago. It made me feel better. I had already had this, but finding someone else to say that, even though humans have told me that before, finding a machine that would tell me that made me feel better, even if it was blowing smoke up my ass. It's actually why I wrote the live stream about you can gaslight your friends as long as it's 1 to 4%. If you gaslight your friends 5% or more, they're going to call you a gaslighter. But if you do it only from 1 to 4%, they're going to think that you're really inspiring and that you're encouraging them the whole way. So it's kind of like this. This is all part of the art. It really is. Great share.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you have to pledge fealty to all of the different you have to go through the social media filter and play by all of those rules. And I hate doing that too. I don't even want to fool with it. It's
Yeah.
necessary for business, but I hate it. I hate engaging with it. It all feels fraudulent and you don't even know what's real. Or, somebody can have 10 million views and are those
Yeah.
views even real?
Yeah. Are they doping, right? Is this part of the same technique? You just don't know. And to even make it more complicated, I think a I think a lot of times, Ashley, you will develop a style that purposely you secretly know society won't want, and you will find an affinity for, and you won't know that you're finding the affinity for that because you're trying desperately to hold on to your identity, and you know that you need things that the public will not like to find that. I
Well,
think
I
this
will
is
say I
why
paint
we
all of my own art. Like I plan to keep it. I don't plan on anybody else having it. Like it feels very personal of the stuff that I actually paint, and it's very different than like what I do for work style wise.
yeah.
Because what I do for work is more what people want to pay for.
Hmm.
That's okay, but
Yep.
I sympathize. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's a juggle and it's a way of breathing. It's kind of an engine. It's a motor that keeps us running. And I think I'm lucky that I have a lower cost of living. I've purposely tried to switch into that, but
mhm.
it's pretty easy because the payoff is just so much better over the lack of parasympathetic comfort. Again, if you're in stress, I know it sounds backwards. If you're in stress, you're in sympathetic mode, but when you relax, you step out of it. Sounds so backwards, I know, but that's just scientifically what they call it. Then you enter into parasympathetic, you enter into your ventral, and I think this is really where all creativity's coming from. Uh, Anyone else have any comments on Ashley's stuff? Great to see you, Ashley. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So
Diraj, go ahead.
Yeah. Um, I love everything you guys are talking about with, you know, the concerns with like trying to do artistic alchemy versus making art as a income or at least just the privilege that it would be perceived to be able to focus on things at that you know just for the sake of the magic of it in which you don't you know it's sort of the I want to argue not argue but I want to say just like creative sexiness therein. So if you're making something for a force and you are sort of devoting it to that specifically without getting any other value involved, or it sort of goes into the sacrifices thing because you are ultimately splitting yourself from that art to give to someone else to enjoy. You're trying to factorize that emotional expression in which you are imbuing if that's what you're doing, or maybe you're trying to cause chaos or the Da Vinci definitely tried to do both of like archetype architecture magic and then also like deluge magic, and I think he studied all of it because he understood this concept of salt and pepper, right? The devil or the demon and the angel on your shoulder, which uh what's the famous quote? It's like both angels and demons don't require UFOs to get around, you know. And so that's sort of the observer, with the snake, which then we would perceive as Ophiuchus, observing the zodiacal wheel, and he is sort of at the head of the snake, right, with the hand, and the snake is also kind of his dick, and the creative energy, etc. Uh, yeah, so where you're sort of finding your body, your artistic body, you're bridging those neurons, the plasmic trails that connect and ideate and constellate.
Yeah. I haven't said this in a while, but Ophiuchus came to my mental constellation, which is very ignorant, over Corona. I never even considered that that was a constellation, more or less a zodiacal house. And during Corona, it was brought to my attention that this could be the 13th house, and you start to look at how large this constellation is in the sky. It's fucking huge, Ophiuchus is. And it kind of really embodies where we're at, that we're in a place that thinks that 12 is perfect, but yet we have 13. That we're in this concept where we have the perfect harmony of all the colors, of all the tones, of all the music notes, and it fits in one of 12, and yet we're living in a world that has 13. There are 365 fucking days in a year, not 360. There are 5 extra degrees. We are being stretched in to thinking outside of our spectrum. Does this make sense? That every aspect of our life is saying, here's 12, but really it's 13. Even your 12 cranial nerves, believe it or not, the fifth cranial nerve splits into 3 separate sections. This is your Judas nerve, the Judas's kiss. The idea of kissing Judas is touching this separate nerve, which branched into a trinity and formed a forked fucking tongue. And this nerve controls your talking, your speech. So everything that we know about the hallucination that we call the Osiris world, or just reality, sorry, but everything we know about reality is teaching you this very important lesson that what you think is 7 is 12, and what you think is 12 is 13, and what you think is 13 is 16. And what you thought was 16 is 12, what you thought was 12 is 7, what you thought was 7 is 3, and what you thought was 3 was 1. That it's a harmonic, it's teaching you to go up and down the scale into what I have now deemed the fourth dimension. I literally think that zooming, Z, the next dimension is perspective, and that we're living in a matrix where we're being forced to imagine that someone has a different perspective than we are. And this is what sapience is. The awareness of the awareness is the birth of this new dimension. And we just don't understand it yet because we're swimming in it. It's the water to the fish. So the time in my mind would have to be in the first dimension, the second dimension, the third. You would have no line without time because you wouldn't know that it started at this point and went to this point. So time is not the fourth dimension in my mind. The fourth dimension is perspective. The fourth dimension allows you through melanin, literally through fucking melanin, to change your cosmology and re-identify, turn it into a different rotation, move it to a different place, and look at something from somewhere else. And all that's really changed is the dark matter matrix that you've used to look into the exact same fucking thing. It's Swiss cheese holes, man. We're just looking through Swiss cheese from different angles at the same thing, but it looks different from all these places. And this is teaching us how to move in this fourth dimension through perspective, through cosmology, through religion, through belief. This is how we get there. True, go ahead.
Okay, different location, no
Oh,
Bluetooth.
great.
I'm gonna try this one more time. Okay, so I have been studying Ho'oponopono, the uh, the Hawaiian forgiveness ceremony, for years and years, and the dynamic of it is I was very fascinated with what you were saying about memory. Where is the memory in Ho'oponopono? The subconscious remembers everything. It's like your inner child that sees it everything and registers everything. The conscious mind and the superconscious mind. Well, the only way where the memory, the where the emotion resides is in the memory. And the idea is to take the memory. I'm sorry I burdened you, little child, with this memory. Give it to the Amakua, the superconscious, and he can clear that emotion. And then I can reframe that memory later in the future. That's it. That's all I got.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'd say more, but we got more hands up. Thank you, True. And you sound great. You look kind of weird. Sort of look like a bunch of white letters on a black background. Sarah, go ahead. Floor's yours.
Oh, wait, I'm like adjusting the screen. Yes, the topic of making art and paying bills is a big topic and kind of a sore topic because I still haven't figured it out. And it gets more overwhelming when you have to do everything online. and promote myself. And so you spend time online if you want to like sell things online, and then you spend more time online to promote it on the screen. And then depending on the platform, you're paying fees to the platform. And if you're official, you're paying taxes. And then it gets to like, well, is this even worth it? Why? Before you separate intentionally, it just kind of happened that way. My creative flow between my fine art, I've always done for myself without really the intention of ever like marketing or selling, in terms of like painting and drawing. My things that I've done for to sell have been more my crafts, and that's always fluctuated, whether it's jewelry, ceramics, leather work, um, yeah, things like that. Graphic ideas, t-shirt ideas, logo ideas, button ideas, all of these are what really come to dead ends because it's all reliant on online. And then once when I tried to like um, have some t-shirt designs, and then when I ordered the samples, they were so bad. Like I would have to order probably at least 10 samples to see which one I would be willing to have drop shipped to someone. Like the quality of the material was bad, the cut was bad. I cut them apart and remade them so I could still wear the logo that I designed on it. And yeah, the financial thing is still just it's a sore spot for me. There are things that I want to do, and the limit of not having the finances, whether it's like moving from where I'm at currently to having gas money now because Washington just has this whatever you want to call governor that's adding like 30 cents a gallon to gas next month and then more in the fall. And one of my main pleasures is like road trips and going out to new natural areas to hike and forage. And then for road trips, I need a better vehicle than my Honda's getting towards 180,000 miles. So I'll do like Oregon, but probably not far into California again with this car. And or there's like somebody that's having a retreat gathering in Florida. I don't have the funds to do that. So it's frustrating for me, the financial thing, like what I'm the balance of like what I'm willing to do. I've never done well in like regular jobs from the time I was a teen. If like put me in a fast food type restaurant or something in a mall in like 3 days, that's it. I can't do it. The last time I had a job, it was a little shop, a cute little gift shop. I liked it because I really felt I needed the social contact. I was too isolated, um, working on my own. And I work by myself in a little shop, and I refer to the owners not as my boss, but I would say, oh yes, the I help out the owners for cash exchange. So I don't even like to use the language of boss, like that somebody has that power over me. And then that place closed for the COVID thing. And that was the end of that. And it was time to move on anyway, so it was good timing. And yeah, it's or I want to do things like the foraging, like foraging tours, and then again, it's like online events and posters and the whole promotion thing just all and it's hard because I have a lot of talents and a lot of skills and then I get kind of how do you say constipated on the market end.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And uh, someone who's battled this my whole life, meaning me, I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm going to tell you what I think. I think that it's all about my self-worth vent holes and how open they are. And that I'm convinced people have been telling me to sell t-shirts for years, and I've been like, no, because I don't know which t-shirts are the right ones, and I would have to order them all. And I just went through that. I just did that. In fact, anyone who bought one T-shirt, I was like, look, you can buy a new T-shirt at cost because this isn't the best T-shirt. I'm still going through it, But it took me 2 or 3 more years to develop the idea that, James, if you don't open that vent hole, it's not going to happen. And I think ultimately this is why it's such a blessing that I was thrown out of corporate America, because it forced me into this kind of position where I absolutely had to do this. I had to open my vent holes enough, just enough, but not too much where I don't have too much self-worth. And so I've been this haphazard creator that makes some things every single day for then also it's just like and I'm working on my consistency as I'm trying to find the right altitude. And I know if I was to withhold more from you guys, check this out, if I was to fucking withhold more from you guys, I would look more consistent, because there would always be a show once a week because I'd have like 300 in the queue, right? This is me struggling as an artist. This is me struggling for not it's not that I don't lack the creativity. I think it's that I lack the self-worth to feel that I'm allowed to seem to be very creative to a lot of people. I think that's what it is. And I think that I insert quirks and purposely go, and I'll spend the first 12 minutes of my fucking show and I'm ripping my hair out as that, which is, as I'm trying to edit down, how do I get this? And I'm so angry at myself because of this blubbering that I'm doing. And then I get to feel sorry for myself. I'm compassionating what I sound like, which is something that artists don't really get to do. The only opportunity we have to do this is when we put it for sale and we see, does someone buy it or not? Or, Sarah, we tell ourselves, I would put it for sale, but blah, blah, blah. And that blah, blah, blah is our self worth clinging to itself, saying, I don't want to fucking get self worth from these fucking hyena. Like, it's just how we view the world. So we struggle with the language. We say it's not them. They're not a boss. They're not. Meanwhile, the world is still requiring us to do what nature requires you to do, Sarah, which is put out nutrients, or a mushroom's going to come sit on your ass and grow new stuff where you sit. If we can have a relationship with the economy, I'm giving you unsolicited advice, Sarah. Really sorry about this. But if we can have a relationship with nature the same way we have a relationship with the economy, I think we'll do better. I think we will open more vent holes because we'll understand this is how mycelium works. This is how all of nature works the exact same way. Put up or shut up is really a tenet of nature. It really is. And if we do not find a way to attract more bees or less bees, or more insects or less insects at exactly the right time and exactly the right season, that we are going to die, and that this is nature urging you to find perfection in your art, inside your creativity. Even if you want to insist that I will build a shell, I will put my walnut inside, I will develop a black husk that sits on top of it. It will turn powdery and chalky and sinewy. And now I will grow burrs. And when people walk underneath me, they will step on their feet and bleed. And the entire time, people are like, I love black walnuts. Let's get more black walnuts. And black walnuts have spent their entire life go, would you fuckers leave us alone? Just stop fucking. Blah, blah, blah. And we're just like, no, we want you more. We want you more because we know that you have self worth. We know you have self worth. That's the entire fucking recipe. So it could, this is what I'm telling myself. This is the carrot. Here's the carrot right here in front of me. It's that. It's that all you got to do is open your vent holes, James. I said this yesterday to myself. You got to open those vent holes, baby. You got to open them. I don't know if it works. I can tell you that it's working more now than it was 2 years ago. I'm a very slow learner, but I've been slowly going through this, and it could all end tomorrow. I could say something today that I don't even know happened. And right now, all the comments are like, you're a real piece of shit. Happens all the time. It's part of the art, though. It's part of me forcing myself to be here and having to constantly look, and me loving it the whole time. Secretly freaking out makes me work harder. Secretly knowing that you gotta just put yourself out there. It'll make yourself feel bad enough. You'll get better. That's karaoke. It would not work if there weren't other people going, hey man, why don't you try have a few drinks and get up on stage and sing? It's we need each other to create these kinds of things, you know. Trevor, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I
Eh,
don't know if I have anything to add. No, I was gonna add to the art talk, but I think you guys kind of covered it all. I'm not really artistic myself, but yeah, I just imagine you could be really good at art, but I don't know. I feel like it's almost as like almost like the like you could be a great musician, but like being the one that becomes like I don't know Led Zeppelin or someone that's actually like you know what I mean? You could be hitting on all cylinders, but you still
Yeah.
have to be a good business manager, marketer. Your shit has to be popular right now. Like there's so much that has to click to get like a I don't know. So
Katy Perry.
that's all I got. That's all I
How
guess I
many
got to add.
people? Yeah, how many people want to be Katy Perry? Like seriously, how many
Right.
people actually want that? Because that's success, right? So that's you know what I mean. Like that's what we call success. So yeah, good.
But yeah, I have no artistic bone in my body. I can't do anything artistic. But
See,
I don't
I
know.
think that
I think about that kind of stuff though, is because it's like, yeah, you have to be like your stuff. I'm sure there's bad art that's like economically viable as
mhm.
well. Like
Oh
there's
yeah,
some, I don't know. And then the whole other thing is it's art subjective, but then there's really, but it isn't and isn't because I think there's like objectively things that look good. Like, you know what I mean? Like a good looking lady or guy. Like there's a supposedly a subjective thing, but like I think most people, it's objectively true that most people will see a certain type of
yeah.
person or art and say that's
Sure.
actually good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
But
even
anyways,
that could still be like culturally tuned though, too. Like even what we consider
yeah,
the
for sure.
ideal, you know, could be wrapped up in that. But yeah, yeah. See, to me, this is identity. We just don't know it yet. And honestly, you saying you're not an artist, first of all, I get it. Like a lot of us say that. I don't think that's true. I think that probably what happens is your life, what you actually do for a living, how you actually function is that art. You're just not giving yourself the credit for that, which is also part of why we behave the way we do. It's a lot easier to survive if you're kind of holding a little. You know, you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. You know, it's this is part of our art too. Is even knowing when to not extend those sensitive parts too much because honestly, it rarely pays off. It's nature's not really encouraging you to be colorful. It's encouraging you to find the best way to pollinate the universe. These are two different goals, very different goals. You know. Ashley, go ahead. Thanks, Trevor.
Yep, for sure. Thank
I was just gonna say last time I came, you had mentioned you were talking about like flagellation, and I was just gonna say that I just imagine, you know, the little flagellator behind all of us and whatever's driving you, if it's your self-worth or your lack of it or whatever, it's just your little flagellator. That's all I was gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, this is really how your receptors work. Your thalamus is constantly saying, this isn't good enough. I will accept this horrible sacrifice that you have brought before me today, but it's not good enough. That this is kind of like normalcy. So,
I would agree that we're all artists in that same way. If we're all rendering our realities, then we're literally
yeah,
artists just by our very existence, and the amygdala is our limitation, our aesthetic, which can change, but yet it's you. And so if you take that, like you said, that identity, that belief in your identity, that which is you, technically we're all artists, I would have to say.
perfect last note. Could not agree more. Guys, let's all unmute, say goodbye, and we'll also do a selfie in 3, 2, 1. Thanks for being here. Unmute, say goodbye. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Have a great
Bye.
day.
Bye, y'all. Have a good one.
Hasta luego.